the BlaBlaBlacksheep podcast, episode 7 of Our Forefathers, avoiding making the same mistakes and breaking the cycle. We've all heard the saying, like father, like son. But sometimes we want to avoid repeating the same mistakes our fathers made. Some of us don't want to be associated at all with our fathers. They have rejected us, so we reject them back. We think to ourselves, nope, I don't want to be like that man, and nothing about me resonates or connects with that person. Some of us go as far as changing our names, changing where we live, cutting off all connection with the biological father. However, history proves us otherwise. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. These are the words of Maya Angelou. So the question is, how do we break the cycle? How do we make sure that we as fathers, we as men, are not perpetuating the same mistakes of the fathers that came before us, that raised us, and the fathers that raised them? How do we make sure that the things that are passed down, or the patterns that are passed down from father to son to grandson, end with us? Research from the Journal of Family Psychology show that men who consciously work on breaking negative patterns, whether it's things like absenteeism, anger, neglect, alcoholism, whatever the case may be, men who consistently work on breaking these patterns are more likely to have healthier relationships with their own children. Breaking the cycle starts with self-awareness. It starts with a willingness to change. It starts with an honest reflection of who we are, what we are like, why we are like that, and of course a desire to be better than that. This may involve and necessitate that you go for counseling, see therapy. Some of us have paid thousands of rands to talk to people to help us to navigate these things, come to a better understanding of why things are in our lives the way they are. Why do we repeat the same patterns? Why do we struggle to make decisions? Why do we struggle to love one woman? Why do we struggle to stick to jobs? Why do we struggle to have drive, to do better, to provide? Why do these things happen? It's easy, of course, to just pass over the pain and try to soothe it, whether it's with alcohol or sleeping around or going out or whatever it is that is your vice. Let's consider a beloved soccer star, Lucas Radebe, a legend of soccer. Lucas grew up in a challenging environment, also with an absent father who wasn't there much in his childhood. As he became a father himself, he made a conscious decision to be present and to be involved. You can do the same. And he's spoken openly about the importance of being there for his children to make sure that they didn't feel the void that he experienced. Lucas made the choice to break the cycle, and today he's known not only for his soccer career and the famous 1996 African Cup of Nations win. Bafana, please, can you give us another one? He's known not only for that, but also for being a loving, involved father. A study from Harvard University in the US found that children of the absent fathers are twice as likely to repeat the pattern of absenteeism when they become fathers themselves. The cycle of absent fathers can stretch across multiple generations, as I alluded to earlier, unless active steps are taken to break it. And we must first, of course, recognize that there are patterns that are being repeated. We must be able to reflect on ourselves with honesty and make sure that we are taking the steps that we need to take to break those patterns. So you might be asking me, okay, fine, so what are the things that I can do to avoid these same mistakes? Number one, and possibly most important, be present. I said in episode 1 that this is not just about being around, about just being there in body. This is about being present, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise. This is the most important thing that a father can do, is to be consistently present with their kids' lives, being involved, knowing what's going on, being interested in who they are, who they're becoming, what is going on in their lives, who their friends are, what do they like, what do they dislike, what do they think of the world. That gives you opportunity to speak into their lives, to be able to teach them, to guide them, and later to be the counselor role that you spoke about earlier. Seek help if you need it. Fathers who grew up without a role model may need guidance on how to be better parents. There's no shame in that. It's not your fault that you did not have a good example of a parent or weren't raised right. You were busy being a kid or trying to be one. There's no shame in that. And I would argue that most of us actually could do, again, with some connection or some learning of sorts about how to do better as men, as parents out there, and to raise his kids in the generation and the time that they need to. So things like parenting classes might be very helpful. Support groups. Sisonke Justice Education offers resources like this which can provide practical tools and a community of support to help fathers stay involved. Make use of them. They are out there. Reach out to people. Reach out in this podcast in the comments. I'm happy to try and connect you with those people that I know or places, professionals that I know and I'm connected to that could be very helpful for you. And so if you're looking for some handy tips of how you can go about understanding and avoiding these mistakes, first and foremost is to recognize the patterns. Be honest with yourself about any negative habits you've inherited from your father. Awareness is the first step to change. If you're married, your spouse is your best asset. They'll be the ones who will be able to show you most accurately what those patterns are. Close friends can also be able to do that, particularly those who might know of your father personally or family members. You can ask, reflect with humility, with courage, because it is going to take that. But the first step is to recognize a pattern, be honest with yourself, be self-aware, and be willing to change. I've already said it before, seek therapy. Breaking the cycle requires us to learn new patterns of thinking. There's a term called neuropsychology. We need to rewire the neural pathways in our brains. Whatever traumas, whatever ways of thinking, whatever habits that have been ingrained in us, we need to find new ways of developing those, of thinking differently and behaving differently. And therapy is one of the best things that you can do to be able to do that with a professional to guide you. And of course, these things, therapy and support groups have been incredibly helpful and successful in the past. Of course, stay committed. You are breaking generational patterns. It's not something that you're going to dream up overnight and make one decision and it's done. You're going to have to work at this, possibly for the rest of your life. But the good news is that it gets easier with time. It's harder to set something in motion than to stop or to break it. Commit to being better, one step at a time. Just keep making the step, day in, day out, and I'm sure that you and I will get there. In the episode to come, we are going to be looking at how absent fathers have impacted relationships and marriages in particular. We can look at how to heal those generational wounds, because if there's a broken man in a broken relationship, we can be sure that the relationship will likely be broken too. And so we're going to give you some tools, some helpful hints of what you can do also in the relationship or in the marriage, so that you can also find and keep the kind of love that you want and the kind of love that you want to give. So join us again this coming Thursday and we explore how to change this generational impact of the absence of fathers on relationships. I look forward to seeing you there. Cheers.